Welcome to our Membership Voice webinar. My name is Kero O'Shea and I'm the Membership Voice Webinar Coordinator. Tonight's webinar is Facebook 101, which will be presented by Applecross Rotary Brand and Story Lead Kate Zappa. Over to you, Kate.
Thank you, Kero. Thanks for that introduction. I guess I will give you a very, very brief piece of my background. I work in PR. I describe myself as a PR consultant, and I'm really conscious that most people don't really have a strong grasp of what that means. But the simplest way that I like to describe it is in that my job is anything and everything to do with building brands and protecting reputations. And one of the ways, and we do that in a variety of ways, but one of the key ways that we do that is actually in finding great stories and telling them in a way and in a forum that really connects and resonates with an audience. And that's pretty much what I do at Applecross Rotary. So I guess my aim tonight is not really to talk about what I do. It's actually more to talk about what you can do to improve your club's Facebook page. And in doing that, I'm hoping to give you some really practical ideas and demystify some of the stuff that goes with Facebook. Facebook isn't a dark art. Social media in general isn't a dark art. But managing a page can actually be a really different experience and takes a different skill set to just using Facebook in a personal sense. What I'm really conscious of is that there's probably quite a mix of experience in the audience, from a complete novice who's just blindly finding their way through Facebook and, page management through to, quite accomplished Facebook page managers. Where I was coming from in putting together this presentation, and it's something Kara and I discussed, was in using that breadth of experience there and trying to find a way to give everyone within the audience, I guess, a few things that they could take away, whether that's, a whole load of stuff they can go and implement over the next couple of weeks, or even, just that confidence that you're actually doing things right and you're doing things well, and that you can build on that and you can keep improving. But what I'm going to say is just a quick housekeeping note as well. I'm going to cover quite a bit at a fairly steady pace. So if you're the type of person who likes to scribble notes, and I say that because I'm one of those people, the best thing you could do right now is to grab your mobile phone, set it to camera mode, and feel free to just take a quick snap of the relevant slide. It's probably going to help you a lot better in the long run. And then, you won't miss the next couple of points that we run through. Also, in my line of work, we talk a lot about finding the colour and the movement in a story to captivate interest and make the content memorable. So I'm going to also try and do that tonight. We're going to strap in, we're going to go on a bit of a journey. But first, what I want to do is I want to tell you about storytelling. So, I should have moved that slide before. Again, storytelling. The chances are in your club, you're actually already doing an awful lot of storytelling. You come together, you tell stories. You get people in, you hear stories, you tell stories. You go out into the community, you run incredible projects, and you do this and you achieve great things by telling stories and doing things. So what I just want to say is that social media shouldn't be different. Facebook shouldn't be looked at in isolation. It's actually part of the stuff that you're already doing. It's just a different channel to tell the world about the things that you're learning, about the things that you're achieving, and to show them a little bit about your club and its personality. But Facebook is an important extension to that. And that's because a lot of people are on there. I mean, you've got that stat there, 1 in every 2 Australians uses Facebook every day. That's 50% of the population. You've then got a further 10% who say they're on Facebook but might not go onto it every day. There's no point now in talking about the fact that Facebook's only for younger people, because the truth is it isn't. And some of the most prolific users I know are actually in that over 60 age group. So, everyone is on there in, all the age groups are represented. You can't rule it out as a tool. And it's, I find it's really important, because what you'll probably realise is that a lot of your prospective members are actually heading to your Facebook page to find out about you, because it's got the capability. They're already on there. They don't have to go looking for a separate website. But it's also digestible information. They're bite-sized nuggets of, little facts about this and that and people. And I guess a modern generation is much more used to digesting their news content in that way. So what we know is that there are definitely people on the other side of the screen, but there are also some really key reasons why Rotarians and our clubs should embrace Facebook. So we know prospective members are already hanging out there, but one of the really important things is that it makes it really easy for your own members to fly the Rotary flag. All they have to do is hit like, share, or comment, and they can tell their own network about what their club is doing. And they don't have to really write a book. They don't have to be persuasive. They just have to let them know. For anyone who's ever waited on an article to appear in a newspaper, the other benefit to Facebook is that it's a self-publishing platform. You control what's said and when it's said. So there's not that disappointment of waiting for an article that you thought was going to say one thing and it comes out and it doesn't quite mention that. Or, you expected it this week, you really needed it this week and it's not getting published until next week. It's also great for advertising. Now, that might be a bit of a hurdle for some, but Facebook's really cost effective and you can really target your audiences. You can get the insights. So we'll run through a couple of those things. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to run you through my top 10 tips for Rotary clubs in terms of managing their pages. And first up is that brand identity check. So what I'm going to say right up front is that Rotary International rebranded a number of years ago. If you are still using the wheel with the blue in it, please stop and move on to the yellow wheel. And this is a personal thing. I tend to think of that a little bit like Coke cans sitting on a shelf. You've got 10 cans and 8 or 9 of them are the modern contemporary design. And then you've got 1 or 2 80s style Coke cans. If you think about it, if you were in that shop, you'd be choosing one of the more modern looking ones, not because the product had necessarily gone out of date, because it's Coke and it probably wouldn't have, but because it looks fresher. You've also got your name. Now, this is something, it might be an issue for some clubs, it might not for others. Certainly when I arrived at Applecross Rotary, they were calling themselves 3 different names, 3 different versions, so the Rotary Club of Applecross, Applecross Rotary, Rotary Applecross, and they were using about 5 different logos. What's really important is you drill that down, you choose one name and you stick to it, you make your logos consistent, because if you don't know what you're calling yourself, nobody else in your community does either. And your image choices, they also say a lot about your brand. That's actually something that a lot of people don't necessarily think about. So if you are your Facebook person, be a guardian as well. You are a brand guardian. So if it's not a great picture, don't use it. But consistency is the key when it comes to brand, and that's not just within your club. That's for Rotary in general. So a lot of you might be familiar with My Rotary. If you're not, you can just Google My Rotary and you will be able to log into it. It's the brand center. Here you can actually you can generate a logo if you needed to update your logo. You can get the detail around the types of fonts you should be using, the PMS colors, if you want to do some design work to make sure it's the right color. And you can also lift some of the images that are there. You can download them, the People of Action campaigns and all of those kind of things. So that's a useful tool to use when you are updating your brand identity. Bringing that back to Facebook, so you've got a couple of opportunities here. On your homepage, you've got your profile image. Now, my recommendation there is to make sure that your profile image connects back to Rotary in some way. It's only small. Don't try and pack it with a picture of your whole team or your whole club. Find some way, and I think it helps it helps your audience if that Rotary logo is in there. Your cover page, your cover image is a little bit different. You've got a bit more to play with there. These can change on a regular basis, but you want to find something which is engaging and, a pop of colour, a bit of vibrancy. And if you can, try and make sure it's complementary to your actual logo. Don't post the same thing. Don't have the same profile image as your cover image or something that clashes, because that's what people will land on. So if you see up in the right-hand corner, the settings button, head into that. Now, I've just put together a really little to-do list, but there's a wealth of things that you can finesse in this section. Messaging. If you get some common inquiries, messaging, setting up an automated response can be a really easy way to deal with that. So, for the Rotary Jacaranda Festival, which has its own separate page, we get 3 questions. We get, when are applications going to open? How can I apply? And am I too late to apply? So I just change those messages. That means the person who's inquiring gets an answer straight away, and I don't have to do much to do that. Edit page. Edit page is a good one because Facebook actually gives you the opportunity to choose the order of the information that you are presenting. Now, my theory is once someone lands on your page, as opposed to just seeing one of your posts in their timeline, well, on your page, they are looking for information. They are looking to get a sense of who you are. So why wouldn't you present the best information up front? Page roles. This is really a housekeeping thing. Just go in and check who's got the right to edit your page and to add posts. Just make sure that's up to date, because you might find that nobody's ever updated that and there's a couple of former club members who can still post to your page. Just tidy that one up. People and other pages, this is where you go if you actually want to see who's following you. And one of the good things you can do here if you want to actually broaden your audience is just go through and check that your own members are following you. And if they're not, send them an invite, because they should be, to be the brand ambassador, they need to at least be following you. So when I was talking about the fact that you can edit the page, you can drill down even more further than that. And rather than just setting that your photos are one of the first things that people see, you can actually choose to feature particular photographic content. And that's something that I would strongly encourage all of you to do, because otherwise what might happen is someone lands on your page and they might just see the last 3 or 4 photos that you've uploaded. And that might be 3 certificates being presented or, somebody talking in the front of a room. It's not necessarily your strongest photo. So all you need to do there is head to the photo block, hit that button and go and change your featured photos, and just choose some that, great photos that reflect your club. So heading to the about section. And again, this is sort of the area that someone who really wants to learn about you is going to head here. So there's a couple of things you can do. Make it really easy for people to contact you. Make it easy for them to see where you meet and to find your website. Your username. Now, this might be one that a lot of you haven't even checked. Just make sure it relates to what someone would type for you, because when they start to tag you, they are going to try and write your name, and you want your name to pop up as a suggestion from Facebook. You might have underscores, you might have dots, you might have just some strange things in there that Facebook has generated when it set that. You can go in and edit that and just make yourself more findable for people who are looking. So your story is also quite a new addition from Facebook. And this is I see it as an opportunity as a space to tell people why you're different. You do your who, why, what, where, and when in that first about section, but your story, let them know why you're special. Number 3, get to know your audience. So Facebook Insights. I don't know if many of you have poked around in there, but it's definitely a place just to go have a look and get a feel for the data that Facebook can give you. It'll tell you how many people have seen your page in the past week or 7 days, 28 days, all of those type of things that you can drill down into. You can find out when your followers and your page, your fans are actually online, so you can start to understand when good time to post might be. You can understand who's engaging with you and who's seeing your posts. So here I've got, people reached. Now, reach, they sort of say, is a really it's a vanitary metric. People engaged. Engagements are much more what you're looking for. But there is a wealth of information in there. You can also find out how other pages are going. So you can compare yourself to others as well, which can be useful. Step 4, work the content rule. So there are a lot of different discussions out there when it comes to content rules. One of the common ones is a 5-3-2 type approach, which is 5 curated posts. So that's, 5 sharing of somebody else's content. And that might be, a website link or somebody else's post. Creating 3 of your own posts, and then 2 humanizing posts. Now, they are things that are meant to make people laugh and feel good about you. That's why Facebook has historically been filled with cat memes. I see it a little bit differently for the Rotary clubs, and this is my proposed content rule. I want to see a lot of storytelling. There's so much good out there that I think you can tell stories. It might be by sharing a link. It might be by doing your own post. Don't get hung up on that, but think about the stories that you can tell. The curated content then becomes what else is happening in your community? What public service can you do by sharing information? And then some calls to action. So in short, my rules are actually be interesting, be valuable, and don't sound desperate, which are actually pretty easy guidelines to work with. Step 5, create engaging content. Now, this is often somewhere where people feel the pressure or become a little bit unstuck. What you can do there is actually stop and brainstorm. Have a think about what projects your club's involved in. Make a list. Think about your club projects. Think about your people. Think about your community, and then your events and meetings as well. There's a wealth of content. There's a wealth of stories in there. And what you can do is you can then plan to share something about them over a certain period of time. It might be that you want to share one of your club projects for a week. And if you've got 20 club projects in the mix or 10 club projects in the mix, that's 10 weeks worth of Facebook posts. So make it easy on yourself. And when you start to think about those themes and series of information, you'll actually find that that's a helpful way. Writing a good post, keep it simple and to the point. There's a lot of power in simplicity. Your audience, you need to write for them. Don't write for yourself or your members. Please don't use acronyms. Rotary seems to love acronyms. And half the time I'm having to Google them, let alone somebody a prospective member out there who doesn't know anything about Rotary and its various awards or its programs. Let's write it in full. Let's make it as human as possible for someone who doesn't understand the Rotary codes. And keep your tone conversational. Think of it as a chatty forum. Try not to be too formal. It's probably quite a different style of writing to a report or maybe even your club newsletter or something like that. So again, the content themes which I mentioned before, think about developing a series or use ones that are already out there, like a throwback Thursday or a flashback Friday. And, go into your old photo archives and pull some of that stuff up. Think beyond words as well. If you can avoid posting without a photo, photos actually make it. Photos are what will get people to engage with it. So try and make sure you've got a photo at least, but video is great as well. And people actually really engage with video. So 50% more people will actually view a post if it's got video to it, which leads us into improving your visuals. So take good photos. Now I can comment on these because I took both these photos. The top one was obviously just one I snapped while everyone was busy working. The bottom one was one that I actually staged. So make sure you stage your photos as well because you'll get a better result. And all that means is saying, hey, look, guys, could you just look up, stay still for a second, give me a smile. That background's nice. Can I just move your body a little bit to the right so we can get that? And let me take 5 of them at once. Let's check that that's in focus, and great. Okay, we're good to go. Now, a photography 101 type of approach is looking at that rule of thirds. Photos that use this rule of thirds tend to be far more appealing on your eye. So just when you're framing up, give some consideration to that. If you're shooting on your mobile phone, a lot of phones will actually give you the option to have those grid lines there, and that can actually help you to take a better photo. So if you do want to improve your photos, that's a really quick way to do that. And think about the props and the color that you could put in a photo to make it more interesting and appealing to someone. Oh, and my personal favorite, Rotarians seem to really love presentations and certificates. These things do not photograph very well. So if you can, avoid them. You might be awarding someone for some great work that they're doing out in the field. Why put a picture up of them in a dark room with a piece of paper in front of them? Ask them for a picture of them out in the field. You'll find that does a lot better when you post it on Facebook than the duller certificate ceremony. You can also make and find your own graphics. Now, these are just a couple of tools that I tend to use quite a bit. There's ways you can source for stock photos. So if you don't have something that's quite right, you can jump on, you can get free stock photos. Canva's a great design tool, free online design tool that you can make your Facebook covers, your event covers in with, just a little bit of design flair if you're brave enough. Also, try video. So we saw that stat, 50% more engagement for posts with video. If you're scared of video, Facebook makes that easy. There's a slideshow option. So when you go to add photos, you can actually put together a slideshow by choosing between 3 and 5 photos. It will then rotate them, which means that when your post appears in someone's timeline, there's a bit of animation and movement in that, which will help to catch their eye. You can also, point and shoot your phone camera. I mean, if you're going to do that, please hold it in that landscape format, unless you're doing Facebook stories, and I'm not going to touch on that tonight. But, landscape will give a better user experience at the end because most people are looking at their timeline in that way. Now, Facebook Live is another tool you can use. That's as if you're on the Facebook app and you're out and you're doing something exciting, or you want to actually engage with your audience, you can go live. I'm not going to go into details on that. There's lots of information out there. So give yourself a quick Google if you want to try the going live function. But it's certainly one at events. That's probably a good thing to do. And there are low-cost video making tools out there. So if you're feeling more brave when it comes to video, why not try one of them? 7, connect your content. So it's all good and well making your content, but you need people to see it in order for it to make any kind of ripple on Facebook. So one of the easiest ways you can do that is making sure you are tagging others in your post as appropriate. Now, it might be people, it might be organizations, and it might be an event. You can add locations, you can include hashtags. You can also stand up in your club meetings and ask people to go onto Facebook and to share it. I've certainly done that in the past. Or you can tag them in, or you can send a message, an email, because as soon as they start to share it, that creates the ripple effect, and more and more and more people will start to see it. 8, use the events feature. So Facebook lets you set up events. And while I'm not suggesting that you do it for every single meeting that you have and every single guest speaker, you can cherry pick your club's, best events. And by creating an event listing there, it's actually a really easy thing for other people to share. And it's not just about the shareability for events. It also then reminds people of the events a couple of days beforehand, and on the day, it gives you a tool to communicate to them. So they might not be following your page, but they might say they are interested or going to your event, and you can post in that. So we, through both the Applecross Rotary account and the Rotary Jacaranda Festival pages that I run, we have the Jacaranda Festival event, and I always make sure I put the year on that because it makes it a lot easier, because Facebook will have a memory. And that's something that people can tap into as well. So, this year's one's only been up for less than a month now, and there's, already close to 3,000 people who are interested in going, which is great because they'll just get little reminders along the way. Facebook actually makes it really easy for you to advertise events as well. So number 9 is to look at the publisher tool. Now, this is tucked up the top. So if you get to your page, you'll see inbox, notification, insights, and then publisher. One of the things I didn't say at the beginning was that I'm obviously looking at desktop versions of the Facebook page at the moment, and I certainly would encourage you to head to the desktop version when you are trying to do any of this working and housekeeping stuff, because you do have limited functionality on the Facebook app and even the mobile Facebook website. But anyway, back to the publishing. This gives you an opportunity to schedule your posts. So actually, if you've got a spare hour, you can come up with 10 posts and schedule them for the next 2 weeks. And then you don't necessarily have to think about it all the time. It's not something hanging over your head. It's just they are going to publish at a time that you choose. Now, another thing I'd say about publishing and timings is head back to that section in the insights and see when your users are online, because you actually want to be publishing when your users are online. Typically, that tends to be in Australia around, from 4 p.m. till 8 p.m., 9 p.m. That is the peak Facebook user time. But you might find that other days are better. A lot of groups, a lot of the advice out there is that Thursdays are the best days to post, Saturdays are the worst, but try it. You might find things are quite different for your audience. So scheduled posts. You can also keep a series of draft posts in there if you want to come back to them, or if you are a team and collaborating and you want somebody else to have a look at them. Number 10, negotiate a budget. Now, some clubs might be more comfortable than others with this, and Facebook is a business. So they've stopped, a number of years ago, you had pretty good brands who ran pages, had pretty good reach of their audience. Now I think they're down to 0.006 or something like that of the number of people who like your page will actually organically see your post if others don't start to like it and share it quite quickly. So put a little bit of money behind it. And when I say a little bit, I mean, I actually feel it really is a little bit. If you were able to negotiate a budget of $200 to $300 a year, that gives you plenty of testing money. And certainly if you've got a larger event, so for example, last year for the Jacaranda Festival, I think we spent around $450 on Facebook advertising, and about 250 of that was for the event listing itself. And that was over a 1 month period coming into the event. That event listing reached 122,000 people, and it was actively read by around 10,000. We had just shy of 5,000 who've responded to that. Comparatively, that total figure of what we spent on Facebook, bearing in mind we advertised for store holders at the beginning and we promoted a survey at the end, and that was like a 6-month period, we spent $450. We spent that same $450 on an advertisement in the community paper for a single week, the week before the event, because it was something that the club had always done and there was a little bit of reluctance to not do it. That reach of that newspaper by their own circulation figures is about 33,000. We also managed to get the front page news story on that, and that was probably a more effective way of communicating than the ad was, but it was there. I don't think that was as good a spend. The money on Facebook certainly did its job. and allowed us to communicate and to build a rapport with that audience. And I think we've seen, the level of engagement has really jumped up, and advertising has definitely helped with that. We can also be really targeted. So at the moment we're looking at a Rotaract project, we're actually able to go in there and specifically target people between the ages of 18 to 30 who are in a particular area. And that's just something you don't get with other mass communication like papers. So on that basis, that's sort of where I want to leave you tonight. And I'm hoping that they are 10 tips that you can all take away and work through, whether one of them works, whether all 10 of them work. But I'm really excited and looking forward to seeing some of the changes that come through your club's Facebook pages. And if we can all work more collaboratively, certainly that tagging feature, let's use that to share and to let others know what we're doing a little bit more within our district and within the Rotary community. So I guess that leaves us to questions.
Thank you, Kate. Very informative. Very informative. Okay. Kate, the first question here relates back to this issue of Rotary being a network.
Mm-hmm.
Is there value, or do you see value in page managers collaborating between clubs so that if, for example, Applecross has the Jacaranda Festival, EWA has the Bruce Rock Swim and other things, if page managers collaborated and shared each other's major event stuff across the Rotary network, would there be value in that?
Oh, look, I think yes. I think as a page manager, you've also got to be mindful of your own brand. So while sharing something that eRotary are doing at Bruce Rock is absolutely fitting for the Applecross Rotary page, it wouldn't be fitting for my audience on the Rotary Jacaranda Festival page. So I just, make that discretion there. But certainly I think it would be useful, and whether that becomes some sort of, whether that rolls out as a group whereby, the page managers all, have that access to say, hey guys, we're trying to get this off the ground. If anyone could give it a share, that would be really handy. I think there is room for that, because at the moment where all the clubs seem to work in real silos, unless you're actually one of those people who are out there and networking with everyone. And I know for one, I'm not, because I, barely have time to do the work for my own club, let alone to go out and meet lots of other people. But I'm certainly open to hearing that. And I know I quite often pull content off the district Facebook page, which is sort of in a position where it is sharing all those things. If I feel it's of interest, or if I manage to see it and I think, wow, that's a great cause, we should be doing something, I will share it.
Thanks, Kate. What about, there's a bit of a thorny question about, obviously, quality control and participation. Do you see value in encouraging more club members to participate in page content production as opposed to sharing?
Oh, I'm a bit of a control freak, Caro. I think you need to lay the groundwork so that your club has a very clear tone of voice and aesthetic, and that any group of people contributing to your Facebook page align with that. And that's probably a bigger challenge to overcome. And it's one that I haven't managed to overcome at Applecross. So I do 95% of the posting is me. But certainly I think there's scope to do it, and it really just depends on the team and the people who are putting their hand up and wanting to contribute.
Providing, of course, that, as you said, that quality standards are maintained.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The flip side, or another thing that sort of relates to that, perhaps not a flip side, is how do you overcome member reluctance to support club pages? Do you have any tips or tricks there?
Oh, I don't, Caro. We've got a messaging group, an Applecross Rotary messaging group. Our club typically hasn't embraced a lot of the new technologies, but a lot of our members are on Facebook, and certainly some of the ones that I've chatted with will use it for their own family connections. So that messaging group does tend to get responses. So if there's something that I really need, I'll put a message out to that group. I stand up at meetings and ask people to share, can put emails out, but it's an ongoing dialogue, I guess. You know, so some clubs will have greater adoption than others, I think, in this space.
Yeah, I guess it is an ongoing challenge. Looking at advertising, which, as you've said, is a very cost-effective way of connecting with a lot of people. In terms of, say, traditional print media, it scrubs up very well. How does it compare with, say, something like radio?
So you're talking about radio advertising. Look, it's still cheaper. It's still cheaper, and your audience is far more defined than what radio will be. And I think, you know, we are talking advertising here. There's definitely scope to look at your PR and your media relations as a separate side of things, and talk to your radio stations and know what you're doing, because a lot of them are always looking for great content and, you know, to get you on and to talk about it. And that's actually worth a lot more than an advertisement that feels like an advertisement. That they'd actually rather get you on there and talk about what you're doing. And you often can't achieve that in a 30-second ad or a 15-second ad.
True. An interesting question here, and it's one that I have seen myself, and it's a bit of a roundabouts and swings thing, but here it goes. The question is, I administer a page along with two other people, and sometimes one of those people will comment on one of my posts, and it looks like the page is talking to itself. I think we have this one. Do you have a remedy for that?
Yes. Now it depends how people are accessing. People with the rights to manage the page are accessing it. Now in that settings page, and I do forget which heading it's under, I did find it the other day, and you can go and you can nominate if that particular person is a primary, like if it should be the primary person for the account, or whether when they comment they should be themselves. And we managed to switch it because we were having that problem as well. The Facebook app is particularly bad with that, and it might be partly because I've got a small child and a puppy, but I just don't have room on my phone for the Facebook app. So I tend to use the mobile page, and that's got a bit more versatility because you can actually change who you are on that, which you can't do on the app. So that might just be a discussion point as well, about agreeing to only comment and like when you're not on the app.
One of the things that we did try that seemed to work reasonably well was encouraging other page editors to, when they were commenting on something, to sign off as themselves. For example, they'd appear as the page, but just put their say their given name at the end of it to indicate who was replying or who was commenting.
Yeah, and look, I feel that works quite well to give the page identity if you're responding to questions that are coming in from third parties. You know, you can sign off with initials or something like that to make it feel a little bit more human. Yeah.
Because the anonymous aspect of a page is sometimes a little bit jarring with some things, but. Okay, now the question of great photos is one that is self-evident on really sort of classy Facebook pages. But should we actually encourage everyone to take lots of pictures, because even the worst photographer can occasionally jag a really good one?
Yeah, and look, there's loads of tools out there, and again, that slideshow function is a great way of moving through a group of average photos, but giving I guess, a bit of colour and movement. Yes, Rotarians need to take more photos. They carry their phones on them. But sometimes getting photos, let alone good photos, is a bit like drawing blood from stone.
Well put. Now, and another one that I'd really like your views on. Members share content, and oftentimes they'll loyally click on the share button and pick up the Facebook option, which just basically throws it out there without any sort of curatorial comment. Do you think there's value in encouraging members, once you've got them into the habit of sharing stuff, to put a personal context on it?
Yeah, that comes back to storytelling for me, Caro. So I think if you can put your personal stamp on that, that's going to connect even better with your audience. So when you're then taking it off to share on a personal account, certainly my friends are less inclined to care what Applecross Rotary are doing, but they're really inclined to care what I'm doing. So if I can tell it from my perspective, that's a better story for them, and that's the mindset that you need to be in as a page manager and as a Facebook user. And I think if as you become a good page manager, you're actually going to become a better Facebook user as well.
Perhaps just one last question, Kate. This has been recognising that you've dealt with a number of them so far. We've talked about the Facebook page being an important gateway to the club. Obviously, a club website is also pretty important in that regard. How would you define the best relationship between a club website and a club Facebook page?
And look, that can be challenging as well, because it's not always the same people managing your website and your Facebook page, and websites can, by their own nature, become a bit more daunting because of the volume of content. I see the Facebook page as being much more dynamic and agile. I would like our, and saying that in my role as Brandon Stories, I do work with our webmaster, but I certainly would like the website to be a real overview, and then for our Facebook page to be I guess going back to those nugget-sized bites of stories. Like we might have one page on our website, but we might be able to get 10 Facebook stories out of that by pulling at different elements of that. So they need to be complementary. But I think the nature of Facebook and the fact that people are already on Facebook, you need to share your best stuff on Facebook, and then make sure that the quality of your website matches that, and that they can find more information than what you're providing on Facebook. So Facebook's your snapshot, and direct them back to the website for a bigger picture.
And it goes without saying, obviously, that both need to be well maintained, because otherwise they'll scare potential members off at a rate of knots.
Absolutely. And, I know when I was looking, I'm fortunate to be in an area where there are actually multiple clubs I could have joined. So my first job as a prospective member was stalk the Facebook pages, see what they look like, what flavour they had, what the membership sort of looked like from that. And I remember feeling that I actually had a better sense from the Facebook pages than from the websites around that. And that's right. Like, you should get that. But that's where you look. I mean, you don't necessarily pick up the phone before you've done your research. And that's it. And online research is how people find out things. So unless it's a word of mouth recommendation, people are going to be haunting your Facebook page and your website.
I guess it's true too that if you're looking for a satisfying volunteering experience that returns real value, you're going to be looking for a Facebook page that deploys that sort of feeling before you start talking to anyone, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah. And we certainly have found that a number of our newer members, and particularly our younger members, had actually seen our Facebook content, and that's what sort of pulled them towards us.
So you could safely say from that brand and story lead Kate Zappa is a key member of the Applecross Rotary recruitment team.
Oh, look, I mean, brand and story goes hand in hand with membership. There's no denying that, because that is what your club is doing. You might have worker bees going out and doing fantastic things, incredible things, but if you can't tell the world about that, you know, it might not have happened. It's that old adage that, you know, if it wasn't on Facebook, it didn't happen these days.
But it's so true. It's so true. I mean, we have so much stuff out there to look at that if you don't catch attention with attractive stuff, hey, your history. That has been fantastic. Absolutely, really exceeded the very high expectations that I had of you when you came in tonight. Thank you for doing that. Just like to thank our audience for being with us tonight. I think that we've dealt with a good number of questions to enhance Kate's fantastic presentation. So thank you everyone for being with us. And just in closing, Kate, thank you again for a very professional and engaging story that I'm sure has added value for our audience, our live audience, and will also be of use to what I think will be a huge asynchronous audience.
No, well, thank you for the opportunity, Cara. It's been good, and like I said, I am eager to see some of those changes coming through in the club pages that I follow.
Fantastic. Well, good night, everyone.